Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is December 17th, and right now I'm rocking the Meet Me in the Convergent Zone t-shirt here. You can see the store down below. Go ahead and click on it if you'd like to order some stuff. But anyway, let's just jump into things here. There's a lot to talk about. You can see the Arctic air is in place across Alaska, the Yukon, northern BC here. Arctic front making its way through southern BC as we speak. You can see it coming off the continent here, running out over the Pacific Ocean. This will wrap around back into the Pacific Northwest here. You can see this polar lobe in motion across British Columbia as we speak, looking out over the Pacific Ocean here, and we're going to get some of this moisture. It's going to try to interact with this Arctic high across our region here as we go through early to mid and later next week. We'll take a look at what impacts that could potentially have as well. Now taking a look here, National Weather Service favoring Seattle north as we go through Monday morning, but this is going to drop below freezing. Even an inch can be disruptive around the area. Some of the models are showing a little bit further extent of the convergence zone as we go through Monday morning as well. So this could be disruptive snowfall with the initial arrival of the Arctic air into the region here. Nice graphic from the National Weather Service, Seattle. Big snows coming for the Cascades, goes without saying. This is for eastern Washington, Spokane. You can see a little bit of a snow shadow across central area here, but again, could be disruptive, even an inch of snow that falls. And then you go east out of Ritzville along I-90 towards Spokane and Idaho. Look how these snowfall totals really pick up down through some of northeast Oregon as well. We'll take a look at some of the snow maps here also coming up to highlight other areas of concern. This is for Missoula, Montana. You can see the travel planner here, some high and extreme impacts coming up here as we go on in through mid this week here. We'll take a look at all this coming up here in a moment. Now, taking a look here, 500 millibars, 18,000 feet, European on the left, GFS on the right. Put this into motion. And really, this is pretty unusual that we're now, this is only 36, 40 hours out, and you can see the difference between the polar lobe and the GFS and the European. We do not have good model agreement even at the short range coming up here. Pretty unusual right now, folks, and I keep waiting to see which model is going to kind of, bow down to the other here. But as we go on into the future a little bit more, look at how the GFS just carries that lobe out of here pretty quickly. It's still pretty cold and brings some cold air down across us here, but you can see how the European just hangs us out a bit more as we go through early and mid next week and brings a little bit more of a reinforcing shot of cold air, keeping us a bit colder here versus the GFS. So big model disagreement here. It's kind of a nightmare for the forecasters here across the Pacific Northwest. Now taking a wider look at things, this is Northern Hemisphere. This is the temperatures at 10,000 feet. I just want to kind of show you what's going on here. You can see the Arctic front making its way down through British Columbia as we speak. And look at all the displacement of this warm air all the way up across the north slope of Siberia there, all the way towards the North Pole, and allows this Arctic air to flow back down across Alaska, Yukon, BC, out over the ocean a bit here as well. So you can see why we're getting such cold air across British Columbia here as we go on through midweek. And we're going to have an interesting battle here for some pretty cold Arctic air and some warmer Pacific moisture trying to make its way in by the time we go on into Thursday. More on that later. Now taking a look here, European left, GFS on the right. Let's take a look at what the surface sea level pressure map here and precipitation. You can see the Arctic front moving down stronger on the European there, more widespread snowfall associated with it, better convergent zone activity on the European on the left there as well. Now we go on into a little bit further out here and watch this. You can see this next slug of moisture in the European here moving towards the Washington coast. It's well further north up towards the north point of Vancouver Island here on the GFS. So this would bring more substantial snowfall to areas further north, talking about southwest BC, East Vancouver Island up here, western coast of BC as well, versus the European that keeps us further south across the area. So you can see these huge differences showing up here just, in the 70 to 90 hour range. It's kind of unusual to have such big differences going on here. Now I wanted to show this as well. The NAM is not doing well with this also. You can see this is last night's run. Look at it bringing this 998 millibar low into the north tip of Vancouver Island. Really nothing to be seen there on this morning's run. And then you let this morning's run play out and it kind of brings that low a little bit weaker and further south as well. A little bit more in line with the European there, but still not completely in line. Now taking a look here, GFS versus GFS, and watch the pains that the GFS is going through here. Here goes the Arctic front initially as we go through. Now we're into Monday night in this next system. Look at the system that the GFS had diving into Haida Gwaii here, 990 millibar low, and then all of a sudden this morning, it's a much weaker wave, much further south into Vancouver Island. So you can see the difficulty the GFS is having with some of this, and you can see it turns it back to snow for some of the Puget Sound as we go into Tuesday night into Wednesday morning versus having it warmer on previous runs here. So we've got some serious model disagreement here and some serious work to do over the next 12 to 48 hours here watching these model runs come in. Now, this is a national blend of models, takes into account the GFS, the European, the Canadian, for example, and some higher resolution models as far as I understand it anyway. But let's just take a look at it here. Here we go on into Sunday. You can see some convergent zone activity starting up here as we go through tomorrow and to Sunday for places like Southwest BC, straight at Georgia here, up north of Everett. And then you can see the Arctic front arrival modified coming down the Puget Sound, showing some disruptive snowfall potential for the Puget Sound here. Maybe some flakes flying as far south as Portland. Here, not really disruptive the further south you go. However, big snows for the Cascades, Northeast Oregon, Pullman, getting towards Spokane, Idaho Panhandle as well. Now, as we go on in through Tuesday morning, you can see some of this fill in here, and it's calling for some snowfall. This would be pretty darn disruptive across Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia, Everett, really across a lot of the Puget Sound. There is the potential still for some of the northern Willamette Valley to get in on this action as well. And you can see this is kind of weighed heavily by the GFS too, showing some big snowfall totals up here for the Strait of Georgia, Southwest BC also as we go on into Friday. But we have a weird transition coming up here, folks, on the day Thursday that we're going to be looking at in some detail here in a moment as well. Now, this is kind of hinting at that. I'm showing Wednesday afternoon here. Look at some of these temperatures across the Puget Sound and up towards Bellingham, Southwest BC, into the low 20s, some teens up here through the Fraser River Valley, and just above freezing down here for Portland. So if we put this into motion, you can see it's 25 into Seattle right now when this precipitation starts, which could be freezing rain at this point. Still 26 degrees, and look at this. We've got some precipitation starting, which could be in the form of freezing rain. It might start off as snowfall, but could transition to freezing rain. By the time we get to freezing in Seattle by Thursday afternoon, we've dropped a pretty good amount of precipitation across the area. So there's a potential for some freezing rain here across the Pacific Northwest as we go on through later next week. Looking a little bit more at that before we can go into some more snow details. Take a look at this. This is the Canadian on the right, the GFS on the left. And you can see that they both highlight some potential for freezing rain. Look at the Canadian down towards Portland here as well. Could be a substantial icing event going on here as we go on in through Thursday and Friday. We'll continue to watch that. We still have a lot of time to look at this next system coming up here. So now we have the high resolution model starting to come into range. We have the NAM 3KM on the left, the HER 3KM on the right. We're looking at 80 meter wind speed here as Washington, Oregon, BC shown there. Now what I'm looking for here is the arrival of the northeast winds down the Fraser River Gap here, and pretty good model agreement shown there as they arrive on in through Sunday morning, spilling out over the Puget Sound. And you can see the arrival also of the northwest winds come down the Strait of Georgia. Sub-convergent zone activity is possible as we go through the day Sunday in the northwest interior across southwest BC. There could be some accumulating snowfall associated with that. And you can see these northerlies push down on the HER and the NAM across the Puget Sound as we go on in through Sunday evening into Monday morning. So temperatures are going to drop below freezing with the arrival of these north winds coming down the area here. And we're going to bring some potential for some impactful snowfall, even an inch, as you guys know, can be pretty impactful here across western Washington. So that's what we're watching out for. If you look closely here, you can see the Okanagan River Gap too. This is another cold air conduit in eastern Washington. You can see the winds flow out of it and push down out of the north across eastern Washington. Well shown here by the HER and the NAM here as we go on in through very early Monday morning. And this is about where the HER ends at hour 48 there. But you can see that nice model agreement here with these winds coming up here. The high resolution models did not do that well, however, last time with snowfall, as you guys might have heard me talking about a bit. So you can see some of this precipitation, mixed rain and snow down towards the lower elevations here as we go through late tonight. But by the time these winds start to arrive out of the north, then you start to get some interesting convergent zones across the northwest interior on the day Sunday, potentially pushing down across the central sound as you go through Sunday evening on towards Monday morning. The NAM might be a little bit more aggressive than what's actually going to happen here, and some of these might get hung up across the central sound, really anywhere across Whidbey Island towards the Seattle Metro. Could get some additional snowfall, a little bit higher amounts than what is being shown here. Now taking a look here, this is the 2 meter temperature NAM 3KM versus the HER 3KM on the right. So you're going to see this activity As we go through Sunday, there go the Fraser River Gap winds. You can see that really cold air start to move out across the San Juans here. Not quite as cold here on the Hura, but it does show it. And then watch as these temperatures drop across the Seattle metro all the way down towards Tacoma, Olympia, and then eventually down towards Portland as we go on into early Monday morning. It's going to drop below freezing by that point as well. So really anything that falls here when it's below freezing is going to be quite impactful. And look at some of these temperatures here across eastern Washington, northeast Washington as well. Some temperatures below zero are possible out there. Plenty of single digits as well, and still pretty chilly across eastern Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. Of course, British Columbia, it goes without saying, as that Arctic air mass really takes up residence up there. Now, taking a look here, we're looking at the Canadian on the left versus Canadian on the right. This is this morning's run, the 4 a.m. versus yesterday afternoon's 4 p.m. run. And I want to show you some of the difficulties the models are having even with themselves. So we're looking at it Tuesday here. I just had to show this. Watch this warm-up occur on last night's run here. Well up into the 40s by the time we go into Thursday afternoon. But look at this morning's run on the Canadian. Still has teens and even single digits. Look at the extreme discrepancy here showing up. So this is what forecasters here across Pacific Northwest have been having to deal with. And look across eastern Oregon even. I mean, you've got 40s versus single digits there, even some areas below zero. So this is just an incredible contrast here, even between the Canadian and of itself. Now, taking a look here, this is Boeing Field, and I want to highlight this. The European is kind of showing that convergence zone activity across the Central Sound here, and the control says a little bit over 2 inches by the time Monday morning falls. This would be across downtown Seattle. This would be extremely disruptive, as this would fall mostly below freezing across the area. Then you can see the secondary bump as we go through midweek, potential for some snowfall there. But this one really could hang up somewhere across the Central Puget Sound here, so that's what we're watching as of right now. If we look at Seattle-Tacoma, you can see lesser amount on the European there. And SeaTac and Boeing Field are only 4 to 5 miles apart here. I think it's like 4.5 miles if I remember correctly, but that's not that far. So you can see the discrepancy in the convergence zone across some of the Central Puget Sound could hang up a little bit further north, a little bit further south. We just don't know yet, but it looks like there is going to be a convergence zone down towards the Seattle metro as we go on in through Monday morning. And then you can see the secondary bump here for SeaTac as we go through Tuesday night into Wednesday with the potential for some more snowfall. Now looking at Payne Field, you can see that convergence zone activity as we go on in through Sunday night into Monday morning occurring up there. This would be disruptive as well, folks. Just an inch is all it takes, and the potential for more later on through the week as well, which we have plenty of time to talk about as we go over the next couple days. Take a look at Spokane here. Nice couple bumps here. Some snowfall. Temperatures are going to easily support snow for Spokane no matter what as we go, with the potential for even some more as we go through. So really 1, 2, 3 chances for some places of eastern Washington coming up here. This is for Boise. Probably the best chance here as we go through Tuesday night into Wednesday here for some snowfall. Bellingham, look at some of the temperatures coming up here. By the time you get on into Sunday morning, you're going to drop below freezing. You're going to stay there probably much of the week here until you get towards at least Thursday night here before the next system starts to arrive. And you can see some of the ensemble members responding to that. And you can see some pretty big discrepancy here, though. You can see single digits, 40s, 30s, teens. It's all over the place here, folks. So we have some pretty big model disagreement on what's coming on later through the week here as well. Seattle-Tacoma, as we go on into Monday morning, much of the week is going to be spent below freezing for a lot of the Puget Sound coming up here. So, and where you have a potential for a snowfall during the midweek portion as well. But then you see the warm-up potentially occurring here. Some of the ensembles are up into the 50s even here, with some teens around as well. So you can see the huge discrepancy as we look out into the forecast. Now, Spokane, going into the ice box here, folks. You can see we're going to drop below. We're already below freezing out there. You're not going to get above freezing. You're just going to drop down even more, with the potential for some temperatures around zero here as we go through the week. So very cold off into eastern Washington. This is for Boise. Similar thing here too. Potential for getting up towards freezing here with that snow event that moves through here as we go on in through Tuesday and Wednesday shown there. But much of the time will be spent below freezing out there for Boise as we go through this week. And big discrepancy out here. I mean, there's some models even saying some ensembles are -15. They're kind of ridiculous. You can throw those out, but you can see some of them are into the 40s and 30s, single digits, right around zero, all over the place. This is for Kamloops. Good agreement here. You can see the big drop off coming as the Arctic air takes up residence over British Columbia. I'd just like to show you this for the visualization of the Arctic air getting into place up there. 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. You can see Christmas Eve through the end of the year. Looks like we are going to warm up here across Pacific Northwest. but we are going to flirt with Arctic air again, probably at some point this year. So, this is just kind of a temporary thing here as we go through the end of December. Above average precipitation, maybe we'll get an atmospheric river, maybe a windstorm, who knows? We'll watch that once we get out of this week here and deal with this cold weather. Now, I showed this a couple days ago as well. Seasonal temperature outlook issued December 15th. You can see January, February, March. Below average signal for the Pacific Northwest here. Again, we're probably going to be flirting with some cold, maybe once or twice more again this winter. And you can see the above average signal for much of the Pacific Northwest as well there. So, yeah. So anyway, folks, you can see the Arctic air. It is on its way. Polar lobe is bringing it down across. Arctic front is sagging south across BC as we speak. We're going to be dealing with some of the specific moisture trying to interact as well as some convergent zone activity before that. So we got a lot going on here, folks. And if things trend more interesting here for the 12Z runs, I just may do another video or I may do another live stream tonight. I haven't decided yet exactly, but chances are probably 90% I will do either a live stream or another video tonight. So anyway, yeah, I hope you guys are having a good day. Buy some merchandise down there below. I see a lot of people buying it. If you want, put a, add me on Twitter or send it to my Twitter feed there and show me some of the gear that you guys are ordering out there, because I see some people ordering this stuff. But anyway, yeah, we've got a lot to work through here today, folks. And like we talked about, some big model disagreement, even in the short term coming up here. So it's going to be interesting to see which model ends up being correct here and which model tries to correct itself here at the last minute. Because you saw the differences between the European and the NAM and the GFS and the Canadian were quite stark in some instances here. So we're still not that sure just what's going to happen with some of those midweek storms here as they try to roll through the Pacific Northwest. How cold will we stay? Are we going to get a freezing rain event as we go through the extended forecast as well? All good questions, all need to be addressed. So that's probably why I'm going to do another video as we go on in through the afternoon or evening tonight. So anyway, I'm rambling on here a bit, but let's go ahead and just expect another video tonight. And I hope you guys are having a good day, and I will talk to you guys later today.